What was the family structure of the Wampanoag?
Well, family structure was pretty orderly. Our traditions say, and there's evidence supporting this, that we had matrilineal clans. In other words, a person traced their descent through their mother's line, and they married someone outside of that line. Marital relationships were seen as a bond of man and woman, but also of families, and in some cases communities, particularly when leaders intermarried. A man chief might marry a woman chief and create an alliance between their two different peoples. And the household was the basic unit of society amongst Native people, as it was pretty much amongst the English too. Generally, each man had a single wife, but there were some men, particularly leaders and important men, that showed their status by having many wives. But generally, the first wife was considered to be the principal one, particularly in the case of a leadership marriage, because the children that inherited the position would be of the woman of the same status as the husband.
So could the men and women conversely say to each other, like a man could say, I have many wives, and a woman could say, I have many husbands, and still everybody's happy in a sense?
Well, I've never heard of a case of a woman having many husbands, but certainly there were a number of cases of a man having many wives, like Massasoit was recorded as having 5, but one of his wives was called by the English the Queen, which designates her status. She probably came from some so-called noble family from some other tribe or close by, and the children that inherited Massasoit's position would come from that line. That's matrilineal tendency right there. And as far as a woman having many husbands, of course the observations of Native culture were made by European men who were biased in favor of reporting about other men, so therefore you don't have any examples of that to go upon, but it's theoretically possible. But whether it is an actual case, we don't really know.
And what were the Wampanoag's belief structures?
Amongst the Wampanoag and Massachusetts and other New England Indians was based upon tradition, handed down from elders to their children and grandchildren, and encouraging them to pass on the tradition to further generations. They all acknowledged a creating spirit, generally called Kitan or Katantuit, that made all things, and for the human beings to use all the resources that were around them and to give thanks back for using these things. There was a reciprocal relationship that was balancing everything. You cannot take without giving in return. It showed itself in political relationships and family relationships and interpersonal relationships between individuals and friends and alliances. All those kinds of things were based upon reciprocal relationship, which the English did not understand and did not observe. So it kind of irked the natives in many ways. But they acknowledged that all living things were equal partners in creation because they all came from the same creator. So therefore, nothing was in direct authority over something else. Some people would say that all things are equal, but they are all different too. They all have different qualities, and those qualities all fit into the universe. So there was allowance for a certain amount of deviance in personal behavior, and there were certain things that were considered to be too much off the beaten path of accepted morality or behavior, so that people might use ridicule or teasing to keep those people back in line. And that way things got balanced, and there was some kind of order. We did not live without order. We had a different type of order than the Europeans had, but because they did not see their kind of order, they generally condemned native behavior.
They assumed there was none.
Yes. Like Morton, for example, wrote that the natives did not have religion. He said they acknowledged an immortality of the soul. He writes about certain spiritual beliefs they had, but he said they didn't have religion. So what are we calling religion? We're calling some kind of an organized dogma of beliefs with a hierarchy and structure, and certain set times you have to go to mass or go to church on Sunday, or and read from the same book, and everybody has to agree, and if you don't agree, then you get burned at the stake or hanged or put in prison or something like that. With the natives, it was very personal. what you believed was your own business, and what somebody else believed was their own business. They tolerated each other's beliefs because they did not necessarily conflict with one another. Because amongst us today, we have a saying: "No one has a monopoly on the truth." Everybody's knowledge is just a small piece of all knowledge. So natives were able to tolerate and listen to other people's spiritual knowledge and accept it, not as contradictory to their own, but as complementing it. Mm-hmm. That's how come they were able to tolerate missionaries so easily. And also they had a habit of, whenever somebody spoke, no matter how outlandish they might put things, you just sat there and politely agreed with them. So missionaries were often frustrated by having these people sit around agreeing with them to their faces, and then they go home and do their own thing as they always did, because it was good manners.
Yeah.
But territorial rights were very important to Native people, because if a foreign body was hunting in another people's territory, that could create problems. And Morton points that out with the Narragansetts hunting up in the Massachusetts territory. Yet the Massachusetts couldn't do anything about it because they didn't have the manpower to drive them out. So Chickatawbut resorted to stratagem to get them out.
Yeah, saying the plague he had on their side from the English and
or
different things.
more actual, what he did was Chickatawbut told the English that the Narragansetts were threatening to them, and then he went and told the Narragansetts that the English were a threat to them, and had one of his men bring a Narragansett to Wessagusset to trade with the Englishmen there, and all the Englishmen were in armor and fully armed.
When the
Indian got nervous, and so he just ran off and told his other people, and they all left. Of course, that's Morton's story.
Yeah. There are several versions of what happened there at Weymouth, Wessagusset.
This was the second settlement at Wessagusset. This wasn't the first group. This was Gorges's group.
Okay, so when is the part that where Miles Standish and some other people ambushed some other?
That was in 22.
Larger Indian. That's in 22, and that's the second.
That was the first.
That's the first
settlement of Wessagusset. Because after they abandoned it, after that skirmish, the Pilgrims told the Massachusetts Sachem not to disturb the palisade or the houses there. And then when Sir Ferdinand of Gorges's son, what was his name?
I know you mean he was a.
He came over as Governor General of New England in 1623 and took over the old Wessagusset settlement. But then he got disillusioned because none of the colonies would recognize his authority, so he went back to England.
The living wasn't fine enough for him here, or something like that. I read about him that he gave it up for many reasons.